Hello, good afternoon, all of you. Today, we are going to focus on madness and literature. That's the broader theme. To work on that, I choose Virginia Woolf's famous Mark on the Wall, a short story written by her. So that's what we're going to do today. Well, in the first half an hour, we are going to talk, just focus on madness. Well, at the outset, it is easy to fall into a kind of a circuit where one defines madness as a medical condition. Or somebody's cranky, fit for the loony bin, nutty, that kind of description. In Tamil they say nut loose. Somebody's lost their integrity. Well, these are all stereotypes, and it's more easy to draw clinical support and then hugely draw huge narratives and stories and anecdotes around a loony person, perceived loony person. Okay, so that's not what we are going to do. We are going to see madness as a creative act. For example, one of the things madness has been invoked historically is the idea that one falls away, one rebels against a stranglehold, a stranglehold of tradition. So in a way, I call this talk like this: tradition and individual madness. A few remarks. Oh, literary kind like me would immediately recognize that I am sort of twisting the famous essay by Eliot, T.S. Eliot, Tradition and Individual Talents. So here I call it tradition and individual madness. A few remarks. Well, why do I mess up with Eliot's essay? For the following reason. Madness can come as a fight and a rebellion against tradition. How? Let me walk you through Eliot's point about tradition and individual talents. Well, he wrote this essay in early 20th century, in the second decade, just to make few points clear about tradition and individual artists' craftsmanship. According to Eliot, tradition is not something you can escape. Even if you want to write and speak and rant about and escaping from tradition, you can do only within the frameworks offered by tradition. And what does he mean by tradition? Well, it could be a convention of writing, such as tragedy, comedy, essay, prose, lyrical ballads, lyrical poetry, and so on. And which has been epic, which has been passed over to you by, over a period of time by great authors of the past. And one can only formulate and, sort of juggle with it, and one cannot escape from it. He calls it a kind of archaeology. Tradition is also some kind of a historical sense. It is, it is there. It is the it is the worldview that one lives in and fights. If at all there is a rebellion, one wades through it in doing the rebellion. Well, this tradition, in that sense, tradition cannot be innocent. For example, if you have to write into tragedy tradition, then you have to follow the grammar, cultural grammar set into tragedy, that a hero, undergoes a hero, so is made up of normative high values. He will undergo some kind of compulsion inside, which will make him commit a flaw, and then he will have to fall with grace, and there is a invoking pity and fear in the audience. So this is a Western notion of tragedy. Take, for example, an essay. An essay should have an introduction or a beginning, middle, where you write arguments, and end, conclusion. A song should have, an introduction, pallavi, anupallavi, and then conclusion. Maybe if it is Carnatic music, a long alapana and followed by a song with typical features of a pallavi, anupallavi, and then mirdangam vidwans and ghatam vidwan doing a kind of a accompaniment feat, and then conclude it. So that's a structure. Okay, tradition and individual madness. Well, there's one thing, madness you can call madness, knowingly violating something, although you know that you will be harshly treated. Even the tradition will not treat you kindly. Such as the art world, people who inform the art world, critics, your teachers, students, family circle, and those who like the old and conventional. They are going to throw tomatoes and eggs on you, right? But still, you knowingly go the spiral path that take you down out there, and which may make you isolated, bring you, rob all the future successes as an artist, and then take that road. Knowingly embrace chaos, knowingly embrace alienation, knowingly embrace the negative side of tradition. What else can be? That is madness. So, in a sense, individual talent may come in the form of madness. That's the point I'm trying to get it here. Well, so interrogating tradition will involve, aware of tradition, but putting it upside down and putting yourself upside down. Go away from the rational. Go away from a logical connect with tradition. So, in a sense, twisting Eliot's individual talent could be madness. Okay? We have to understand what kind of individual talent is. In Eliot's language, individual talent means peculiar essence of the man. Okay. Eliot was a man of his time, so he only said peculiar essence of the man. But in 21st century, we would say individual idiosyncrasies. And that may be leaky, it could be excessive, it could be volatile, it could be, a dissolution of the strict binary between mind and body. You can call an individual body-mind chaos, body-mind as single word. Okay, so you let the control go. You let yourself spill over in all directions. You let yourself write something that does not, come under the stranglehold of tradition. Well, lots of writers have to embrace this kind of madness to rebel. For example, let's go with the following examples. William Blake voluntarily embraced a mystical mind, if you like, a mad persona, to understand God's purpose on earth. In fact, he has to embrace a non-judgmental childhood, non-judgmental personhood, namely childhood, to understand the dynamics of power equation between the tiger and the lamb, the enchanting character of nature around, God's rule and its idiosyncrasies. Suppose if he were just yet another rational poet, like how Eliot wanted him to be, then we would not have got the kind of great poem like Tiger, which Blake remarkably gave us. Let me give that's a poetic example. Let me give the example of Kamala Das. Well, she she rejected English hegemony, the language that comes with language. She said, English is mine. It is mixed with Malayalam. It's mixed with my feminine self. It's mixed with my upbringing. It's all broken up. My the narrator's sexuality, femininity, language. It's all mumbo jumbo, and yet it is mine. So voluntarily she embraced mumbo jumbo, and I said, "That's my language." Who are you to say that's not logical? And therefore, she came up with brilliant poetry. Now, let me give an example from autobiography. Someone like Mehta. Mehta passed away recently, and he was blind, of course, but in rejecting the tradition, he also behaved like a mad autobiographer. Let me explain how. Well, if a writer is blind, you expect blindness stuff from his writings. If a writer is a woman, you expect woman stuff from her writing. If a writer is black, you expect blackness stuff from that particular artist. Well, this is also the weight of tradition by the art world, where Mehta rejected. So, for example, he would go on interviewing people. Then he would say, you know, I saw him and he had he did not comb his hair. He was wearing a blue coat and a broad smile. Then we exchanged glances before I left his room. Then his readers would say, what on earth is happening? You are a blind writer. How can you lie in your interviews? Mehta would go berserk, go mad, and would say, well, don't be so literalist. Don't be so crudely empirical. Interviews can also happen where one can mix an identity that one would want. Who said interviews only have to be factual? They can mix fiction, they can mix imagination, and one can be one can be a cited. One does not have to declare blindness of in interviews. For example, if you want me to say, oh, I went to his room, you know, there was a problem, then somebody had dragged me to the chair and I have to sit there. You want that kind of content? Well, I will give it when I want. Don't dictate. So one have to, you know, violate norm. So what am I saying? Interrogating tradition, checking on tradition, whether it is helpful or not to you, or you want to distinguish yourself, in Eliot's word, individual talent. You have to be non-normative. You have to say, no, spade is not always a spade. One can occupy realities that look appropriate to oneself and know whether that reality is sanctioned by others or not. Right? So, so that would involve accepting the label madness. Okay? So, art world is full of such examples. You have to, you know, accept that this is going to be a problem, that madness can be the name of the game of art. Okay, what else? So I'm saying madness is normative, non-normative. Madness is the way one would call anyone, one who violates well-established convention, which Eliot called tradition. Well, there is also, madness is also breaking the binary between conscious and the unconscious. Eliot would say, in fact, bad poet is usually unconscious where he ought to be conscious, and conscious where he ought to be unconscious. Both the errors tend to make him but the problem is the unconscious and the conscious binary is again a convention established by social register, cultural register, and one's orientation, and one can break it. Eliot is informed by Freudian normative views, meaning consciousness is what one sees around, one's body, one's language, one's logical mind, and unconscious is a force that dictates oneself from behind, meaning behind the mind, the body, underneath. Unconscious is like a, um, um, iceberg. Iceberg, the tip is tiny, and when one goes down, it becomes huge. So what one sees at the outset is tiny, peripheral, little, and negligible, but the unseen is huge. So one's unconscious can be chaotic, violent, humongously uncontrollable, and beyond rational understanding. Well, ideally, Eliot would like people to leave the unconscious out there, wherever it is, and just present the conscious. Or talk about consciousness, external realities, when one is talking, and talk about the unconscious when one is talking about it. Never mix both. Well, those who want to rebel, those who want to break the shackles, they mix both. They cross the binary. So apart from being normative, non-normative, madness, that is, the individual talent of madness, could also involve, mixing, intermixing, crossing, and border crossing between both. And that happens more when somebody is in the margin, because they are not able to afford strict borders between external and the internal, public and the private, conscious and the unconscious, and so on, which we will come to discuss with Virginia Woolf's Mark on the Wall. Well, finally, the idea that tradition will involve behaving well. So there is a tradition is not an abstract idea. Okay, it is practical, everyday stuff. For example, you will always hear, in our tradition, women have long hair. In our tradition, women take care of household. In our tradition, we don't do this, we don't do that, and there is always a division. In our public life, we do this. In our private life, we do that. So there is always a strict divide between what one, what tradition, how much tradition allows oneself to be public, and how much one allows an individual to act and perform in the private. So, well, as Eliot was not complicating this, but our understanding of tradition and so on will involve this binary. Well, we are talking from the point of view of, from the vantage point of view of disability. Now, look at all the 4 points that I have been talking about. Tradition, the idea of non-normative. Let me do it again. Disability. What does it do? Well, in terms of madness, one violates the neatness of register. This is polite language. This is formal writing. This is informal writing. this ought to be used only in social media. I need to introduce a subject. I need to, I need to clearly arrange arguments. Now, in a normative way, one can puncture hole in it. The second idea is that you don't have what disability does is particularly cognitive disabilities, intellectual disabilities, emotional disabilities. It allows newer possibilities. I am not romanticizing suffering that comes with madness. I am only saying that madness can come with possibilities. So, in other words, even if one is suffering, it gives a new insight into reality. That is something we ought to accept. Right. So, conclusion. I took this idea from tradition and individual talents because this is something Eliot's essay is one of the literary feats that defends art for its own sake. It also defends the importance of respecting tradition. I am not saying that we ought to violate all that. No, not really. But we need to understand the idea that tradition is not a neutral political idea, nor is talent. People have diverse bodies, minds, orientation, affects, and they all do something to the dynamic between tradition and individual expression, and we need to recognize that. In the next lecture, I will, demonstrate that with Mark on the Wall by Virginia Woolf. Thank you.